Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the event Declaring Distance, an online forum, an exhibition, workshops, and many events that happen here in Bandung and also broadcast to you everywhere, particularly in the Netherlands. My name is Theo Frituta Barat, and I'm here with my fellow friends, artists, and curators here in Bandung in Selasar Sunaryo Art Space. Okay, so everyone say hi to the camera. Hi. Yeah, so we will have two sessions today. First is with all the participant artists that exhibit works here in Selasar Sunaryo, and second one is the filmmakers forums that will be hosted by Arnold Arps later after our session. But before I want to start this event with opening remarks from Esther Kapten from KTLV, who made all this event possible with the project Atelier KTLV. I will introduce her first. Dr. Esther Kapten is a senior researcher and staff member at the Royal Netherlands Institute of Southeast Asian and Caribbean Studies in Leiden. At KTLV, she is currently developing a new research line on post-colonial Netherlands with links to Indonesia and the Caribbean. Moreover, she is a researcher at the Independence, Decolonization, Violence and War in Indonesia, 1945-1950s program at the same institute, which is already published and launched last month, in February. So, Esther Kapten, please.
Thank you so much, Theo, and great to see you all. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I see you wandering around. Wonderful to see you all here in Bandung, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you on this special occasion on behalf of the team Atelier KTLV and also of our partner, Framed Platform for Art and Culture in Amsterdam. And I'm really looking forward to this meeting. And despite the title, Declaring Distance, I'm very happy with our Bandung connection in the person of Theo Frituta Barat today at Selasar Sunaryo Art Space in Bandung. And I would like to talk a little bit more about the background of this project, explain why we have been creating this fellowship, and it's not me only, of course, who has been involved in this. It's really the team and all our colleagues of KTLV who have been thinking along with us and also contributing to this initiative. So KTLV is an interdisciplinary research institute. We are focusing on Indonesia, but also on the Dutch Caribbean. And we are exploring the pre-colonial as well as the post-colonial project and everything in between. And we are doing that from a historical perspective, anthropological perspectives, and political approaches. And our aim is to bring human agency into the framework of power and also interrogate that power dimension. The Institute was founded in 1851, and therefore the Institute was firmly rooted into a colonial context. You could also say it was a colonial institute. And this is a history and a legacy that we have to address. We have been doing this already, for example, during the 150th anniversary of the Institute, and a book was written about the History's Institute. Not sure if you can see it with the blurred background that I have. I have to put it for my own hand, which is a book by Maarten Kuitenbrouwer titled Between Orientalism and Science. So we're really exploring what the legacy of KTLV is as a colonial institute, and we have to keep doing that. This is due to the fact that society is changing, the institute is changing as well, and we have to develop new knowledge practices. So therefore we started also this initiative of Atelier KTLV. This is a working group within the institute, and we are dedicated to creating space for conversation and collaboration between academics, artists, activists, writers and journalists, photographers, in exploring intersections between scholarships and other domains of knowledge and curiosity. And with this goal in mind, last year we have commissioned and sent out an artist call in which we asked for an artist to come up with ideas to create a visual art piece for a new building that we will be moving to in the near future. We don't know exactly yet because of lockdown. Things and policy also have changed. So we are supposed to be moving to another building in the near future, and therefore we would like to have an art piece that is a discussion piece, so to speak, as part of an ongoing reflection on this changing character of the KTLV. And the work itself would be the start of a series of conversations to which future artists in next rounds, next years, may respond. So this artist call has been sent out, and we got responses from all over the world, we must say, not only from Southeast Asia, Indonesia, but also from the Caribbean part and also from the Netherlands. So we had a selection committee, and we chose Theo Frits Hutabarat as the winner of this artist call. Theo Frits, and we've had the pleasure of talking and working with him the last couple of months. He has a master's degree in fine art from the Faculty of Art and Design of Bandung Institute of Technology. And his work was already part of group exhibitions in Bandung, Bangkok, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, Seoul, Singapore, Turin and Yogyakarta. And we choose him because he really made very explicit that he wanted to use the collections of KTLV in Leiden. So he said that, quote unquote, KTLV is one of the main institutions that house archives from the Dutch East Indies era, and thus the KTLV has the capacity to produce certain narratives about the past, but also narratives about Indonesia and the Netherlands. And therefore, Theo takes an interest in the archives of KTLV because he sees it as a crucial factor in exercising his civic right with regard to Indonesia's history. And he believes that archival images have a transformative power that in return can create and legitimize power as well. So I have had the pleasure of talking with Theo Frits regularly over the last months, and it seems as if once he got the news that he's got this fellowship, there was a momentum that was created in Bandung and also here in the Netherlands. So in Bandung, Selasar Sunaryo Art Space joined, and also the Parahyangan Catholic University joined in this cooperation, especially with Ari Respati and also Veronica Mariatti. I'm not including all the people because I'm sure I'm forgetting some people of the Indonesian Bandung part. And from the Netherlands, Framer Framed organized and joined the production team, and they did a fabulous job. So I'm very grateful also to Eugene Peters, Emily Lee and A.V. Evans. So we all made this possible together. So today and tomorrow we will be engaging in this hybrid presentation, Declaring Distance Bandung-Leiden, a translocal exchange on the way of imagining and engaging with colonial archive. And this is actually the first phase of Theo Frits' residency program, because soon he will also be going to the Netherlands and visit the Institute, and also be working with various art institutions and engaging with the archives here. So today and tomorrow there will be a series of online roundtables and film screenings. We will connect with local communities and students from the integrated arts, from the Parahyangan Catholic University in Bandung, and also the wider audience in the Netherlands. So I'm looking very forward to these exchanges. I would like to thank the KTLV Atelier team also of making this possible and thinking along. Marike Bloembergen, Alison Fisher, Fransjo Guadalupe, Kirsten Winking, Tibisai Sankatsing Nava and David Kloos, and of course also all other colleagues of KTLV who are also joining in this morning. So very grateful and looking forward to further exchange. So thank you so much for your attention, and I give the word back to Theo.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Esther. That's, I think, yeah, a bit, yeah, okay lah, I take it, thank you so much. Yeah, so, but this event, this exhibition, it's not about me at all, because yeah, when I ask all of you to talk about something at first, right? To talk about archive and history and everything. Yeah, I think we agree that we find, I think, same perception or mindset or frame of mind that something could happen through artistic practice, right? Through paintings and through artworks and everything that could be done in the exhibition space. Yeah, so now we will start our session. This is the first session. How you make your image. Yeah, I forgot our session's title. How you make your image. Yes, so this is the question, okay? Zaldi, Zico, okay, Andit, how do you make your image? We have artworks here. We already exhibited it. This is already open for public, yes? So everyone already come in and interact with everything that's presented here. But we want to know more. We will have discussion more about everything that we can discuss here. And let's start from the big painting, the green big painting behind me. Yeah, this is work from Kei Imazu and Bagus Pandega. They are husband and wife from Bandung. But he's from Japan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, from Tokyo. Yeah, so
Japan.
please say hi.
Say hi.
Hi, I'm Bagus Pandega. This is my wife, Kei Imazu. Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
So want to start explain
Yes, let's go.
our work? Bagu-chan.
So this is ongoing series actually from us. It started around 2018. Yeah, we
Yes.
made, this is already the third
Iteration.
the third edition we made. So not edition, the third series iteration we made. Yes. Sorry. And then in this painting you can see there's a
Image.
Image,
yes. So, this image is from about Sumatra だよね。
so rainforest.
そう。で、オイルプランテーションとそのあれだ。Sumatra has so many resources in history, like Dutch era も also Japan troops during World War II attack around Palembang to get Dutch shell companies how to say oil plant.
Oil refinery. Yeah. Oil refinery.
そうでour この green painting パスト2
The last the previous two works.
そのテーマ is deforestation なんだよね。
The theme was deforestation.
Because of その oil plantation. The Indonesia is the biggest export company っていうか
Yeah. Export country.
country だ。country of palm oil だ。で this is real palm oil tree. で this is only under equator can grow.
Well.
で only tropical で like アフリカブラジルhere Indonesia Malaysia とか have to be under equator で also tropical で maybe foreigner difficult to find what the difference from normal palm tree とか but
Yeah.
this is real palm oil tree なんだよね。
Yes. But the history also from how the palm oil tree grows in Indonesia is also related to the history of the Dutch era at that time, because it's part of the research. They bring it to the Bogor Park, yeah, and then it can grow really. It suddenly grow like 2 times bigger than the original size, and then from that time. Started to produce the palm oil from that research, scientific research. And then with this painting and with this work, you can see this is a machine. Actually, it's still on progress. I have to say I'm sorry I cannot make it on time. There are several technical problems I found during the production. And then that is how this work will be generated or shown is like the machine will get an order from the palm oil. So it's gonna read like, this name is a biofeedback. It's using a synthesizer made from Scotland. The name is Instruction. We're gonna connect this palm oil tree with the Instruction, and then the Sion will give a direction how the machine will. There's a brush here, how the machine will erase the painting. So it's like at the end, by time like after the exhibition ends, the painting will change shape, will change image.
Yeah, now on this big painting, there are このセンターのビッグis なんだっけ、サニタイザーじゃないの、
Fertilizer.
ファーティライザー of
Not fertilizer, yeah.
サニタイザーじゃないの、なんだっけな、want to show だけど how to show です。スマトラの
Sterilizer, yeah.
ステリザイザー
Sterilizer. Sorry.
ステリライザー
Not fertilizer. So it's a palm oil sterilizer
そうそうそうそう
made in Surabaya.
で also そのどこ行ったっけな want to show その because this time そのテーマ is like an archive で then I use this is from レイデン how to show やそうそう、そうそうそう can you see そうそう
No, it's too close, I am.
too close
Yeah. Okay,
Like
that's good.
this?
Yeah.
そうそうそうそう
Big machine,
こう
yeah?
いう
So big.
そうそうでこれが This is そのファーストそのプランテーションで
Palm oil.
そうそうそうそう already その19 around 14かなもう started the deforestation でこれとか also this is like スマトラでハンティングだなそのタイガーをエレファントとかでバグちゃん系
Yeah. Okay. And then so it's yeah, we're talking about
あいやいや
like
So this is just そのパストだ
Yeah.
その all history I'm Japanese so I put Japan troop also World War II also Holland and Indonesia Leiden Bandung そので all history そのgonna その easy disappear with this machine so we want to show is その now presence and past
The past.
が how to connect like that でした、
Yeah.
そう
Yeah, literally disappear later,
so.
right?
Literally disappear.
The green paint, the image, everything.
そう
and also sometimes like the Indonesia thinks the palm oil is indigenous
From
Indonesia
Indonesia.
plants.
Yeah,
They have a pride of we're the number one
twisted, yeah?
yeah,
Yeah,
oil
yeah.
plantation in the world. Something like that.
sorry machine not ready で
Yeah.
ごめんな
Yeah,
さい
yeah, yeah. We will post it in Instagram, right, later when it's working. Yeah, so thank you, Kay and Andit. We cannot see it for now. The image will disappear in a month, maybe, or two. So yeah, but from what Kay just described from her practice and how she get the images and how her background as Japanese, right? You know some things that we don't know, right? Because in Japan, you know
So,
the painters, but now, yeah,
So.
that kind of backgrounds help to recreate. Although, I always wonder who is he,
あこのボーイでしょ
right? So big in front of your face. Who is he, right? Who is he? We don't have no.
like similar so many unknown.
Yeah, so many unknown also. We will see that later, yeah.
We can get to
Many faces that, yeah.
I think also the boys
Like,
for showing how the scale.
Yeah,
human-
just as measurement scale.
So
Yeah,
there
this is
is
super
a-
big. We can build this machine, yeah.
そのフォトグラフ is always from Dutch っていうか、
Yeah.
そうそうポーランドのそのフォト is only
Tool,
そうそう
Tools, yeah.
そうそうそうそう
tools, media.
So maybe just そのワーカーなんだけど he's worker but そのポーズをそうそう
Yeah.
そうそうそうそう because there is caption original photo has スラバヤのワーカーだと
Yeah, we know it's from Surabaya, the machine, but we don't know the person.
そうそう yes yes yes
So ironic. Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah,
Thank you.
that's actually just the opening of our session. We still have many spots
So
that we can see. So for everybody in the Zoom meeting, you can save your question for later, maybe, or is this about this piece? Okay, so yeah, please. Okay, what's the title?
Artificial green by nature green, version 3.
Artificial green by
By nature
nature
green, version 3.
version 3. Yeah, so the painting is artificial green, yeah. Very artificial if you say. But the
The
palm
nature.
is like, yeah, the nature. The one who destroyed the nature, right? Yeah.
そうそうそうなんだ
Hope that answers the question. So now we will move to the next piece. So we can move. We can follow. You can follow me. To the next, we can see structure like pillars here, like 2 of it. There is 4 actually, but we already saw. We can show 2 for now. This is work from Zaldi Armansyah. Hello, Zal. Maybe you didn't put on your. Can we hear
Hello?
Zaldi?
Hello? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello.
Yeah, Zaldi. What's this?
This is an image of waterfall in Bandung, Dago, and I combine it with a material of plastic bag and make it a landscape visual. That's it.
So this is plastic as in how you carry your daily groceries.
Yes. This I'm interested in how color color change our perception of reality, time, past, now, and future. And I specifically use plastic bag because plastic bag is actually still new in our
Civilization, yeah.
civilization. It is widely used massification in after 1970, 1980, and before that we don't know
What material is that?
What is that?
What kind of color is that? Yeah.
What color like this, and we don't know. And now we see it everywhere in the natural and in the city, and I am interested in how it changed our perception of reality. That's it.
Yeah. So the old photographs from the distant years ago,
Yeah.
it's superimposed to our daily reality, as
Yes.
in the plastic bag and colors, right? Yeah. So how we should imagine what kind of world that we see then?
Yes. I'm also interested in image of the past archive, and this is when we see photo archive, we see is it a factual or fiction, imagination, or anything else? And in Bandung, we tend to romanticize our time in the past, especially Bandung as a city, big city in the colonial era, where Netherlands people live in Bandung, and we Bandung people like to romanticize our past, and I'm interested in how we confronted our past with the reality of our world now.
Yeah, so not that romantic,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yes, so daily and everything. Yeah, maybe we can see the other works, like this one is different image, different colors, different composition. Yes, if I'm not wrong, we can see you try to find the horizon in each image,
Yes.
and you try to extend the horizon with because the color is the interaction of the colors, right?
Yes.
Yeah, is that like a symbolic kind of gesture?
Yes, we in Indonesia have a history of art about Moi Indi, and we tend to, there's this problem about how we present image of the tropical island in Indonesia to romanticize beautification and anything else. And I try to confront our romanticization of the past with the kitsch quality, kitsch aesthetic about the plastic bag. The plastic bag this is an image of Citarum. Citarum is widely known as a main river in Bandung, and now it is polluted with industrial material, plastic bag, waste, and anything else. And I try to what we see about Citarum now, how we perceive, remember, is it polluted right now, or is it there is a time where it is still clear and clean? So I juxtapose between the image of the past and the material plastic bag.
Yeah, but I assume there is no this plastic bag at that time, right?
Yes.
So yeah, this is waste actually, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just here as a color and texture, but in real life, this plastic, the same plastic, it's already in Citarum like now and floating, and yeah, it's not the same Citarum,
Yes.
right? Yeah. What do you think? Yeah.
Yes.
That's the irony, right?
Yes, the irony.
That's the irony. Yeah. So yeah, this is one example. Yeah, how artistic practice can, you can say, confront our perception, our given
Yes.
perception about something, and this particular images about Bandung. It's all about Bandung, right?
All about Bandung. I'm interested in Bandung.
Yeah. Before Kay and Andi talk about the Sumatran plantation. Yeah, so this one is about Bandung, and how we. Yeah, I think tomorrow we will have a specific session about that. So stay tuned. We can talk about this more tomorrow, right? Okay, so we can continue now to the third piece. This one is a bit darker, in the dark room here. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, please come. Okay, do you look like in a cave?
Yeah, it's like the dark room.
Yeah. So maybe you can, please join us here. Yeah. Okay, so now we're in front of an image.
Of an image.
Of a painting.
Yeah.
Right, Zico?
Yeah,
So
it's a
this
projection,
is Zico's Albaikuni's projection of his painting.
Yeah.
Right? This painting called Ruatan.
Yeah, Ruatan Tanah Air Beta.
Tanah Air Beta. Yes. And this piece now not in Bandung.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
It can only be here as an image.
Yeah.
There is like literally distance,
Yes.
because the painting is in the Netherlands.
Yeah, in the Tropen Museum.
Yeah, in the
now.
collection of Tropen Museum. So I also invite Sadio Bunsra to join us, to join our conversation here.
Yeah.
Can you?
Okay.
Yeah, can you? Okay.
Okay.
It's on?
Okay.
Okay, good.
Nice. Yeah. So Sadia, this painting first come to the world at to the public eyes, exhibited in Framer Frame in Amsterdam. Your
Correct.
project called Botanical.
On the nature of botanical
On the
gardens.
nature of botanical garden. Can you talk about it a bit?
Yeah, I can share a little bit. That exhibition was at Framer Frame, so one of the partners of this today's program as well. And the idea of that exhibition was to decolonize the botanical gardens. And I'd seen Zico's work at APT 9 in Brisbane, and it just immediately resonated with me.
And then we had the opportunity to meet in Melbourne, and then we had a couple of coffees, and then boom, there was a painting.
Quite big, 6
It's-
meter
Yeah,
by
6
2.
meters by 2, right?
Yeah,
6 by 2, yeah.
Yeah, so Siko can tell more about the content and what's in there.
This painting is actually really, I think nowadays, I think how I understand my painting is as a conversation piece, and also like this is coming from a conversation between me and Sadia in that time. Like because one thing that when the coffee time that we have in Melbourne, we just like, okay, let us have a morning coffee, and then bam, it's like 6 hours. We just have a talk, discussion, because and what we talking is about the Kebun Raya, the botanical garden.
Bogor.
In Bogor,
Yes,
yeah.
Indonesia.
Yeah, because that is very interesting because I have like this idea, but I never had a place and really like a platform to really talk about about this idea. So just like tabungan, so like it's like what is it called, like investment.
You keep it for another project.
Yeah, keep it like keep it in a note until Sadia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's happening, and for me, it's Kebun Raya is of course it's a physical place, but it always changing. First, before the colonial time, the Sundanese time, where the Pajajaran time, there's have a stories where that place is actually
Sacred, right?
very sacred.
Yeah.
It was like place for somebody. So that's why I put this statue that there was found also in the Tropen Museum, Kaitalfe.
Yeah, there are pictures of this exact same statue, group of statues
Yeah.
at the Tropen Museum in the collection, right, that you
Yeah.
found?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
taken by Van Kinsbergen, Isidore van Kinsbergen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, when I was there, I was coming there with the with the Sunda Wiwitan, like
Ancient Sundanese.
with the Sundanese, like that's still practicing the Sunda Wiwitan. And when I'm asking them, like because when we come to Kebun Raya Bogor, they let me like, you have to go here first. So okay, and what is this? Because in my mind, that was like Nandi statue that
Hindu's time.
Yeah, but when they told me, no, this is not Nandi. This is the son of Prabu Siliwangi. This is Munding Laya. So it's have different context. It's have like different function. And for me, when when it's found there, it's actually interesting because one of the photos that I found is this sculpture. Because they're changing also how they arrange this. Become more like Sunda Wiwitan with the like the structures that
Like a circle, right?
yeah, circles,
Yeah.
like so like Masagi in the center, so like very philosophical in Sundanese structure, and it's also function as the Sundanese Wiwitan
Pilgrimage.
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because of course like it's almost go to the museum in Tropen as a statue, but it will be not like this anymore. So it won't be function. So for me, it's fascinating when I heard that they using this back to the past before the colonial time, even though that's already recorded in the colonial time. And it's interesting also because the place is the same, Bogor, yeah?
Yeah.
But now it's Indonesia, so it's also like a different
Changing
system structure.
Yeah.
That's why I put also this gazebo. Because this gazebo is the panisan. It's very specific in Sundanese term. Panisan is usually place for you to be called. I mean, like
Meditate. Yep.
Yeah, to meditate. And there was belief as also like because behind there was like the sacred tomb.
Tomb, yeah?
Yeah, tomb.
From the Sundanese.
Yeah, Sundanese. So
Yep.
Mbah, I forget the name. Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a new concept.
That is conceptual.
That's intended.
But yeah.
Let's wait for the.
Yeah.
Let's wait for the image to. Yeah, maybe you can continue.
Yeah, I can continue. Like,
There is
again about the place and about the, yeah, it's changing to Indonesia. But it was like before it's used as gazebo in the colonial time. And it's interestingly used by Sukarno for
Our first president.
our first president.
Yeah.
The first president used that for back again as the intended in the past, like to meditate.
As a sacred.
Yeah, it's a sacred place. So
Yeah.
and now
Yeah, the layer more complex.
Yeah, the layer is
with each.
yeah. And now it's also become like, yeah, because this is the interesting part about the, yeah, also with Nandi and this part of the Sunda, the gazebo, almost all the places, because we lost all the archive, we never know. Like I just know it's like when I'm doing the projects, it's supposed to be the thing that I think I know that from my childhood or the stories, but somehow the complete story is you only can found in the future by internet. So I always feel like the past, sometimes I can found it only in the future. Like tomorrow I will know what is my past. And that is about I think the archive, you know?
Yeah.
You feel like that because, you know, like,
interesting, yeah.
it's interesting because we lost context. We lost a lot
Yeah.
of, because it's taken, yeah, of course it's taken. It was not in here. It's not accessible. We can access that when it's already have the distance. When
Yeah,
it's,
the distance.
Yeah.
The distance.
Yeah, the distance. Like it's not in a physical form like this.
Like metaphorical distance.
Yeah, metaphorical distance. We only can get it when we have the connection with the internet, with everything. It's like, so the physical things that we should know, like tactile knowledge, somehow it was
There's
taken
none.
from us.
There's
Like,
none,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, and yeah, almost so like that's why the works, the Ruwatan, and it's very interesting when you proposed to me like to join this exhibition, but only the projection of the image.
Yeah.
The image is already in Tropen Museum, the
Yeah.
physical that I made physical,
And the canvas, the oil.
yeah, the canvas, the oil, the pigment that make me talking about the colonial past, the trading things. It's now we have distance again.
Distance. The literal distance.
The literal
Yeah,
distance.
this is the first time people in Bandung saw it almost in real size.
Yeah, almost
But
in
as
real-
an image.
Yeah, as
The-
an image.
Yeah, the
yes.
paradox of it, right?
Yeah. So and we also like we also like removing a lot of the I mean, like, of course, when we projecting it,
We lost the texture.
we lost the texture, the information, details.
Yeah.
But we still have again like the imagination.
Yep.
Yeah, and like or maybe we will create another Nandi stories. That is Punding Laya. That is Sukarno times. Maybe that is. I think like that is some irony that always happening with us. I don't know. That's how I feel. We only know the past and the future, and we know things because it's already have distance with us. When we living it in the time, sometimes we just passing by, neglected, not forgotten.
Taking it for granted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, after we lost it,
Yeah. Then we are starting asking why, but why not like why as a critical question, but why it's happening to us?
yes, like
Yeah.
more like an agony.
An agony.
Why me? Why this?
Like,
Why yeah.
The why is not a critical question. Why is become like agony, like why happening? Why it's happening again?
And
Yeah.
it's already too late.
Yeah,
Always
but
too late.
hopefully not in the future.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I think so, like, because I think like there's a lot of development. There's a lot of now we can at least we have this we have this hope. I think we have this hope that in the future we will know our history. So I think that is very important part that I really put as one of my my mantra. I believe that in the future I will know the history, something like
More
that.
like a prayer, right?
Yeah, like prayer. Because
Yes.
that's my works, like always about ruwatan,
Yes.
prayer. Yeah.
Yes. yes, paradoxically, not about the past. It's
No.
all about the future,
No,
right?
about the future.
Yeah. Interesting. This is only like the opening, right, for the whole project. But yes, as you can imagine, we have this kind of condition, which is particular. Maybe this is like I don't know, only colonial subject that had this.
Yeah, I
right?
think so. Yeah,
right.
I think
Not
so.
everyone.
Yeah,
right?
not everyone.
So particular.
Yeah, so very, very particular and peculiar at the same time. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
And this happened also maybe Sadia, you can join us. Like this happened also in many parts in the world, like in their post-colonial or the colonial state now. Maybe also in Caribbean, also in
Oh, you mean the artistic practices in general, or?
and the feelings, the experience, the
Oh,
these
yes,
things,
yeah, that is what we were talking about.
Yes.
Before we started this afternoon, actually, but about like this South-South experience of being formerly colonized. So we were sharing that, right, like with each other, like how can we also make these connections with artists in other countries and recreate also the South-South connections that were already actually in place during or came into place over the let's say, early 20th century up until today, but maybe now it's time to also renew those bonds and renew the alliances that were made.
Renew.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the important part. Yeah. Things could change, of course, things always change.
And like what Siko was saying, I think like it's not even something of the future, it's something what is happening today. And I think your exhibition,
Even today.
This exhibition is an example of that.
Right.
I think so,
You think,
yeah.
right?
But
something's happening here.
yeah, something is happening for sure. And
Through Zoom.
yeah,
and
through
everything.
Zoom as well, and through us being here, and then through all the participants online and in the Netherlands, and looking at the same thing. And obviously the experience is different, but it's still a conversation about visual images, about this connection to the past and what to make of that in the present for new memories in the future, and hopefully for a more equal future. And I have the feeling, but maybe we should first look at your work, right? Because we didn't even get there yet.
Let's go.
Yeah, true.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Recording in progress. Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, so,
So I'm taking over the MC role now.
yeah, okay. You can take it from me.
because
Yeah.
because you didn't want to interview yourself. So
Maybe you can also interview me, Zico. Yeah.
so if you could explain a little bit about your vision and idea for this work.
Yeah, so continuing from Zico, I think, more or less, the same structure, the same kind of experience happened, like I said before, like this is like particular and peculiar and so everything. This image actually, two parts of image that superimpose to one and another. We can see a projection to a painting here. We also can see, you can see over here, like this one is like photograph, real photograph. This one is, I think, from the 80s. Yeah, this is real photo, my family photograph, real paper of photograph. Yeah, actually, like you said, Zico, the one that we cannot recognize because of the distance happened, because of the structural distance. Yeah, by design, I think there is a structure, right?
Yes.
Something.
I think like
Not
that's-
like naturally distance ourselves.
Systemically, I think maybe that
Yeah.
it's because like I think like to create a paradigm, it's not it's not just happen because
Happen like naturally. No,
Yeah,
no.
no.
Yeah,
Paradigm is-
and on this particular work, actually, there is some structure. More literal structure is like the one that Zaldi already explained with the river and everything. Our civilization tends to be set up around river from ancient times, right? But now, we forget it, right? We forget it. And for my particular story, actually this is from my childhood home. This is from my family album, which got flooded like last year. So the river is always flooded, and until now it keeps on, like I think now it's every month have this like danger and red coat, and each time the heavy rain happening, my family just like, let's go move to our siblings and our to different places. Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of, you can say it's like a disaster, right? But like that's like not natural, right?
Yeah.
Not natural at all. And this image actually from the KTLV's archive showing the river in Bekasi. This is
This is the Sungai Bekasi, yeah?
Sungai Bekasi.
Oh, yeah, the river
from
from Bekasi.
Bekasi, not from Bandung actually. But actually the photograph have an image. Each photograph have an image. I assume it's my father's or my mother's or from my father's family and everything. But because of the flood, it just turns into this abstract, beautiful image, and
That's interesting.
that's it. And then that's it. I don't even recognize my own family, my own father's faces, my own mother's faces. No whatsoever. Like the distance is, I think, more extreme because like this is supposed to be the closest thing that happens in our life, like the family, right? Like what else that could happen more close than our family? But yes, let's say my family archive, right? We have this tradition, right? Bringing camera photo and develop and print it, not like today, where you can take many pictures. Maybe in our childhood, we still have this many photo albums. But paradoxically, I lost them. But KTLV still have this image from, I think, early 20th century.
Yeah, but it's also interesting because you say like it's beautiful, abstract.
Yep.
But it's unknown.
Unknown.
This is also beautiful. This is abstract idea about the Bekasi in the past. But this is also unknown.
And,
but
and again with the agony, why this is happening?
But also, on the one hand, the image is gone, but you still have the memories.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the most difficult thing. If I don't know this, if I don't have any memory of this, it doesn't matter, right? But I have it. And I have like a projection to this even abstract image. I assume there is someone that I know, my father. Yeah, that make like, things a bit complicated, right? From there. Yeah, so this kind of distance, like, I think a bit more intimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the closest one.
The closest one.
Yeah, it's more, we can have this kind of agony, even not very far away, not only in the cultural sense or in the nationalistic level, but even start from our own home. Yeah, that kind of piece that I want to share with everyone.
Yeah, let's talk about that one.
Yeah, and we also have this, you can say it also a bit old-fashioned, yeah?
Nostalgic, yeah?
A bit nostalgic, maybe?
Maybe, Sadio, you can remember when you go to some place like Disneyland and you have this postcard to bring home as merchandise, right?
A souvenir postcard.
Souvenir postcard and this rotating. Yeah, you can see maybe a little bit zoom, yeah.
We'll turn it around slowly so that you get an idea. So can you share what you've done
Yes,
with, here?
This one's actually pictures, images of Dutch East Indies era, which collected from many archives in the Europe and Australia also. I can show this one maybe.
Which one?
Yeah, well, you can see. a bit, yeah, maybe a bit about this. I can share about this a bit.
Yeah. Shall I hold it?
Yeah. Yeah, a few years ago, Alexander Supartono from Taring Padi made this exhibition, workshop and exhibition, I think, at Langgeng Jogja Foundation, Art Foundation, and he bring these images as a findings, I think, findings for his project, and share it to artists that he invite to join the workshop. My friend Charda joined the exhibition and the workshops. And then when Charda come back from Jogja, he brought these folders, like thousands of images that I never seen before until now. Like now we can access it digitally, right? Like everyone can access it, can download it. But back then, I think that's not that accessible enough. Yeah, but the idea is I want to like continuing Alexander's gesture for sharing it. As for now, you can see this is the entrance of our exhibition, and everyone can come and take
This,
from
yeah.
this.
But maybe then you should also say that it's not actually a postcard, right?
This is not a postcard
Yeah.
actually. It's the size of postcard, but yes, you can see it. This is actually a sticker.
Yeah.
This is actually a sticker. You can peel it. Let me peel it now. Yeah, this is actually a print on silver sticker. So when you open it like this, it can transform into anything else.
Yes.
Something else, like totally new kind of, what do you want? You want to stick it in your
On
helmet?
your computer? Yeah, or on your helmet?
Laptop?
On your motorbike?
Yeah. I want to stick it here maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything could happen, but it have to start it now.
Yeah.
It have to start from like small gestures, and I hope everyone that come to this exhibition for the next month, the next 2 months, they can take everything from here, take anything that they want, they can stick it everywhere where they want, and yeah, let's see what can happen from
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah. So it's about creating new meanings, yeah?
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
everyone can assign meanings for themselves to the images that you printed.
Even though, who is he?
Yeah.
Who is he?
Still anonymous.
Still anonymous. We have distance so long from his name, from his age, from his, who's he?
Yeah.
Who is he? Yeah, but that kind of reality, right? We start from there. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's the reality that we have to face, and yeah, a bit agony and a bit, yeah, it's a bit bitter, of course, but you have to face it, right? So yeah, let's see what can be done from this. So the Declaring Distance event and the exhibition and the workshops and the forum and everything, basically just trying a little, like baby steps to do something about this condition, right? But then again, with Sadia, I also talk with you, right? About
Yes.
that's not just like a personal kind of thing. This is, like I said, structural. This is something that happened in bigger picture. There's something that gain something from it. There is some violence that happened, that something epistemic being, shoved into your thought, right? Maybe you can explain a bit about it.
Well, I've just been listening to all of your stories it was just so interesting. And this morning I just came off the train and I arrived here and he showed me around a little bit. And also hearing the stories from the artists now, I think it's been really great to also see all of your works here and even see Selasar Sunaryo where I've never been. And just for you to know my background a little bit is that I'm trained as a historian and a curator in the Netherlands. So actually my first job was at the Tropenmuseum. And my desk was situated in the photo bureau, so the Department of Photography. So all of the colleagues around me were working on images like this. And as a historian as a historian, I'm quite familiar with these images, and I'm most familiar with Siko's work because we've been working together for a while now. But it's really interesting to see how each of you deal with these images in your very own way. And what I notice is that all of these works are about a connection, an attempt to understand history and the past, but from your own view and your own experiences, and calling out, exposing coloniality and its legacies today, what it does, what it means, what it still continues to mean for our lives here in Indonesia, but reinterpreting in a way that also offers directions and openings for a future that can be imagined in a different way. Like the artworks that you made with the plastic against as a background, or kind of like merging into the colonial images, sort of like really making that connection. Like, yes, there is a romanticized idea or imagination even among Bandung inhabitants, but at the same time there's also this reality of the Citarum River and the pollution and the waste, etc. And that is in part also a legacy of economic exploitation of the environment, etc., that comes from coloniality. So it's like really interesting to see that you react to like all of these different things. And I also love your work, the artificial green, edition number 3, I think. It resonates very much with me because it's very similar to what I was trying to do for the exhibition on the nature of botanical gardens. Really trying to address also this economic exploitation and natural exploitation, and seeing and understanding nature as just a commodity, which is actually happening, and sort of like really visualizing the effects of that, but then also sort of like trying to erase that sort of like violence in the image. But then I'm also curious, what kind of future do you imagine for after that? Yeah, for this one, or future imaginations.
Well, actually, when I started this work, actually I really inspired by now ロシアとウクライナのwar で because that's also problem with resource っていうかさ、オイルらそのロシアンオイルそうで EU そう
All Ukraine, yeah.
So the EU and all countries is so depending Russia. Then also I am Japanese, so why Japan started to attack to Southeast Asian country? The most target is そのオイルだと思う。インドネシアのそうでそのlike a war っていうかさ、その sometimes そのcolonialize とかその imperialism is always その started because actually そのジャパンとかさ、ホーランドとか UK って nothing やそのそう but インドネシアってさ really rich country なんだよ。This country actually everything have このリッチフォレストとさ、そのリッチリソースっていうか本当にアメージングだ。なんてリッチカントリーなんだろう。But why don't know people always forget そうlike チタルムもさあんなねビューティフルだったのにさ I surprised easy toss so many garbage とかさwhat these people feel I'm why そのガバメントとかさそのコラプションプロブレムとかさそうmust this country has more さなんかなんていうかなポテンシャルじゃないけどさそう have to study past what happened とかさで also now what happening でそう その want to continue to future そのねその to see archive っていうかさ to see past history はその to make this country better に really important. And also I search archives only その other country has インドネシアはその
We don't have.
そうでしょ
Yeah, we have Andri, yeah.
そう
But I think it's quite small.
Yeah, Andri, but
size.
for images,
So-
yeah.
It's
Yeah, for images.
difficult to access, yeah.
So
Difficult to access. Yeah.
So that becomes その your concept というか、その distance があるんだよね。その
Yeah.
history が already その import again みたいななんかそのそうそうそうそう
We export
そう
our
そうそう
history and then we
そうそう
import
そう
again
そ
our
う
history.
でそのディスタンスがそうすごいその I found affected to Indonesian artist っていうかさ
Same like our resource, we export as a
We export
raw-
something and then in
resource,
raw material
and
import as
like,
goods.
I like to use like soldering tin. The main material is from Indonesia, and then export to Japan. And then we buy really good quality from Japan, how many times more expensive. So it's something like that. Also.
Export and then import again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that works the same for these kind of like visual images. They have been, in a way, exported, and now you guys are working again with such
Imported.
images and re-importing them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yes, still a long, long way and a big, big homework about that, right? About this whole, yeah. When we talk about Indonesia and the structure and in a global sense, we still have so much thing to do. Like, how can we start doing that, right? So because this is not just like can be finished by an exhibition, a painting, like that kind of, yeah. It starts something, right? And then.
But I think it already has started. You guys are already doing it. Siko has been doing it. You are working on it. I think you all have a lot of peers who are trying to deal with it and really offering, challenging, the current discourses and really offering also new perspectives. So I also feel that, you're not starting, you're already doing it. So you can, as far as I'm concerned, I think, everyone should also just own that it is already happening. Like Siko is really trying to subvert the gaze, the colonial gaze, and trying to reappropriate the Sundanese meanings of those images, but also of the places within Kebun Raya Bogor. And yeah, you're right, it doesn't happen overnight, but everything like this, every artwork that you make is a step. It's a step, and it creates new understanding. So I do feel that, all these artistic practices together, and each of you also included in that, is really also helping with it's knowledge production too. It's another way of knowledge production, and it may not be, it may be different from academic knowledge as developed in, from a Euro or Euro-American perspective, but it's still a knowledge production, and it does generate knowledges that would otherwise not be accessible, like the Sunavivitan, etc. So I feel it's really valuable that all of you are doing this, and I just hope that more artists will continue also working on this, and that
Yep.
We get to continue this sort of decolonizing movement
Yeah,
among
yeah.
artists.
And the most important thing is how to make it public, right? How we can see the exhibition space as something that inherently public, right? Like everything that we shows here is for the public, and that's the place, that's the space that we have to explore. How the public perception, how our collective awareness and perception about everything, about the export import and everything about this, which is will continue by our next session, because our next session is quite specific, because it's like a forum of filmmakers and media practitioners, which they will talk much from their practice about the usage of film footage and media. That's also, I think, even more greater it can spread to more distance than actual painting can be, right? It can broadcast to everywhere. And yeah, so we can continue this until tomorrow, but we have to stop, and we can continue to the next forum, which already waiting. Sorry for waiting. Continuing from our conversation here, I want to introduce my fellow. Which camera should I look? This one? Okay. I want to introduce Arnold Arps as the host from Amsterdam. Yeah, Arnold is in Amsterdam. Hello, Arnold. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
And I'm actually in Leiden to be really in the theme of the conference also.
Okay, yeah. So Arnold is in Leiden. So yes, thank you, Arnold, for joining us here. Arnold Arps is a media and culture scholar working as a lecturer in film studies at the University of Amsterdam. His current research focuses on the position of media and popular culture, with a special interest in film and literature within the fields of media studies, cultural memory studies, and post-colonial studies, with the Dutch East Indies and Indonesia as his main research topics. His PhD project investigates how cultural memories of the Indonesian War of Independence are produced, constructed, and consumed through contemporary Indonesian popular culture. So, Arnold, from here, please take the session.
Yes, thank you very much, Theo. Thank you also for that introduction. Luckily, today is certainly not about me. I want to say good morning first, good afternoon, good evening, or night, wherever you are, and we are from all over the world. Welcome to this Filmmakers Forum, Cinematic Interventions to Yesterday, as it is titled. As Theo said, my name is Arnold Arps, and I will be hosting this session, this forum. And in it, we will discuss the relation between visual art in its broadest sense, because I don't know if everybody really well, it's a discussion whether or not, or to what extent, the artworks that we're discussing, these visual arts, are films in itself. But more important, I guess, is how these artworks relate to the colonial archive. And of particular relevance is how the colonial archive is used in these artworks to create new narratives, how they highlight maybe formerly underrepresented stories, and also how they help us remember the past. And of course, indeed, as Theo said, circulation is important to that, but I think actually that this session really resonates with the forum that we just had. So some things will be familiar, more things will be different, I assume. Now, central to this is also how archival material is used by the artists, and each in their own terms, because they do this differently. And I am very happy actually with our guests, who you can see here. I'll introduce them in a second, which I all consider quite prominent artists, so that's really nice. And as we will hear from them, their work engages with the colonial archive in these different ways. And you have all had the chance, if I'm correct, or at least you still have the chance to experience their work, either online or, as Theo and everyone else is in Bandung at the Selasar Sunaryo art space. I am joined today by these three guests who will talk about their practices and expertise in relation to visual art in the colonial archive. And our guests today are filmmaker and film critic Rizky Laswardi, social anthropologist and artist Veronica Mariatti, and artist and filmmaker Riyar Rizaldi. This will also be actually the order in which I will first ask you to introduce your films. And we will take as a starting point their films, which they themselves will introduce in a minute. At least I will ask them to do so. And I want to also point out that if you have any question, and please have them, ask them, I think, in the chat, and we will return to them later, because I will try to keep some time for a Q&A at the end of this session. But I will first ask the artists to introduce their work, and specifically, as I said, the role of the archive in it. And then we will dive a bit deeper into several aspects of the film. So I'd like to ask first Rizky Laswardi, who is our first guest. I'll introduce him if the people in Bandung can also spotlight him and remove my spotlight or share it at least. Our first guest is Rizky Laswardi, who is a young filmmaker, artist and curator from Semarang, and he obtained his MA in Film and Media Art at the Hochschule für Bildende Künste in Hamburg, if I'm not mistaken, and his works have been presented at the International Film Festival Rotterdam, Yokohama Triennale, OK Video Jakarta, the European Media Art Festival, Osnabrück, and many other festivals. And Laswardi was a program consultant for Arsenal Berlin for the Asian film selection of the Berlinale Forum last year, 2021. But, and this is I think today the most important, in 2019 he was commissioned to conduct artistic research on the colonial-related film archives at the Netherlands Institute for Sound and Vision, so Beeld en Geluid in Hilversum. And it is this work, the work that he made, that was commissioned there, that we will discuss now. And I'm, of course, talking about the film Not a Light Touch from 2020. And I would like to invite you first, Rizky, to help us understand maybe a bit about where the film came from. So maybe could you explain, for example, maybe also explain the title, and then why you created actually this work as it is now, obviously focusing in particular on the colonial archive.
Yes, thank you, Arnold. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the time. First, maybe about the title itself. The film, it's about the bubonic plague or Black Plague. It's more known in Europe. During the time where the Black Plague wiped out Europe, it was believed that the impact for the Netherlands was so light. I mean, like, it was not as severe compared to the other region in Europe. And then lately, after 2010, there were more and more findings that actually the impact was so big, and Netherlands at that time was so strong in their trading, so it's important for them. People know that Netherlands is like a safe port, so that they could carry on with their trading, so that they can get connected, and that's why I call this work as Not a Light Touch, because actually it's not really a light touch what happened in the Netherlands, and it also happened. Also, it's related to the plague in East Java in the early 20th century. The outbreak started by the rice import from Myanmar. The decision to import rice taken by the colonial government. So yeah, of course, because of that trade, because of the rice import, the plague started in East Java. It didn't affect the Dutch community, those who live in urban area mostly, because they were aware about this plague, so they could have like a better and more hygiene lifestyle, but not with the peasant live in the village, especially those who work with the rice imported from Myanmar. So that's where the title come from. And the material itself I got in the Institute for Sound and Vision in Hilversum. At the time it was 2019. I just found the film and found it interesting. I find this film was so strong. It has like a gothic feel, like F.W. Murnau kind of film. It employed like stop motion, illustration, animation, but most importantly, it has two intertitles in Dutch and in Indonesian language, which I find both interesting and funny, because I still wonder who their audience, their target audience was actually, because the peasant had quite low literacy rate at that moment. So I wonder who is their target audience. Yeah, and then the film is like a good film. It's like a 3 parts of film made by Willy Mullens. We can always discuss who Willy Mullens was. It consists of 3 parts, but the most interesting part is where they emphasize that to eradicate pests is not through a medical measures, but more in the architectural and city better city planning. So it's good to build a more hygienic environment, and the housing structures made of solid material, so that there's no hollow space where rodents or rats, the carrier animal, could dwell. And yeah, that part is emphasized in the film, to build a good house and a healthy house, a proper housing. It's emphasized in the film. And then I found a journal from Dr. Cipto Mangunkusumo, a prominent Indonesian doctor during the colonial period, who took part or actually led the education mission in East Java. Dr. Cipto wrote that there was actually one village completely burned down during the mission. The reason why they burned it down, because the infestation was so intense. I mean, like, it's no use to do the renovation, so it's better to burn down. And most of the inhabitants could not survive the plague, so it's like there's no victim if they lost their house. But those who survived got reimbursed. So new village was built, new houses were built and given to the survivors. And the house, the old village, it's called Desa Banyak, was completely burned down. It's a quite a strong and romantic episode in that mission, because Dr. Cipto found a baby in the house that was almost completely burned down, and the baby was later adopted by Dr. Cipto. So the story about the burning village is not completely forgotten, but still quite vague. And then in the journal, I wonder why is that episode was not depicted in the film, the burning house depicted in the film. I mean, like, there's no written explanation, but it's interesting to know that Willy Mullen, as a commissioned artist, filmmaker, he had the decision which part that can be shown and not. I mean, like, even though it's an ethical action, a measured action, it's a necessary action, but there's some kind of stigma, like, I mean, like, it was made in 1920s, like before 1920s, there were already like battles throughout the West Indies where the burning of house was like a staple conducted by the militia, by the Indonesian militia, and also it carries on with Bandung Lautan Api. This is just my speculation, and then I just tried to make that scene. So I collected footage of empty houses, and then I applied some composite fire, and then I put the intertitle. The reason why I put the intertitle with a quote from the journal, because it's written in both Old Dutch and Old Indonesian, and I like actually how they write about the house. They measure the house with the price of the house, because it's cheap, so it's fine to burn the house down. So I like that kind of perspective. So yeah, I mean, with the artwork itself, I print that part in 16 millimeters. So far it has been shown like 2 times. There's always difference in how I presented the work. Sometimes it showed like side by side, and I'm trying to put it and splice it together as a part of the film. And now, it's been asked to show digitally, but I still don't have the feeling that the impact of experience that's seen in the digital feel the same when we saw it with the tangible material, because the materiality matters in this type of experiments.
I find it interesting. Sorry to interrupt you here, but
no worries.
Because I want to ask you a question about this idea of materiality. So first of all, what I want to point out actually is that indeed, as you said, so you took the film by Willy Mullins, which is called The Plague on Java, or The Pest of Java. And as you told me also, this is actually available on YouTube. The iFilm Museum in Amsterdam has made this available, so everyone who hasn't seen it yet, and you can just Google it or try to find it via YouTube. But can you maybe, to continue with the last thing that you said, and just one question, because at the end I will ask all the questions and then we'll continue. But what for you is actually this, what's the significance of materiality for you in when it comes to the archive, but also in relation to your artwork, and then maybe particularly in relation to how and where your film has been screened, because you say that you think that the digital version of it doesn't really sort of resonate maybe as much as a like a physical art space. Can you maybe say something about that at this time?
Well, this is also very technical matters. I mean, like, of course, the burning scene was made digitally. It looks so digital. It looks so, I mean, like, it's not easy to apply that. I mean, like, to have it like the actual look, and to put digital back to a film is not a standard or common practice actually. Like, the most standardized is from film to digital. I mean, like, to put film back from digital to a film was never been a standard practice, because while the cinema still used 35 millimeters as a staple technology, the digital technology was getting better at that time. So there's no reason to put film back to film actually. Only artists need that, or like a specific archivist that requires like certain color latitude, but not in industrial sense. And of course, because we don't have that kind of standardized practice in different social landscape, like in the, for instance, like Indonesia, where I mean, like, I grew up in Indonesia, where the technology of information mostly taken for granted. We had a very, I mean, like, to grow up with like chronological technology development, and we understand the material. It's unlike where you grew up in Paris, when there's a Paris Cinematheque or film museum where you could understand the media archaeology, not in Indonesia. And when you see material presented in celluloid, there would be no question how the image could back to this celluloid material, not the other way around. And second, of course, is very technical matters. I mean, like, I find to put a digital material back to film, there's a certain color latitude that could generate film emulation better than you just apply filter in software. So it's more convincing as a quality. And also it's different when you experience that in the material that was projected the same with the original film and then the made up film.
Yeah. I think well, I'll come back to that later. I obviously have more questions. One of them relates to this idea of reenactment, this idea of sort of creating something that was not there in the archival original. This also obviously relates to materiality. But I need to sort of rest that question for a second, because I want to go to Veronica Mariatti. So thank you very much, Rizky. I will come back to you later in the Q&A, but now I'd like to welcome Veronica Mariatti to ask her to introduce her work. But before that, Veronica is a social anthropologist and artist working on issues of indigenous politics, colonialism, racism, and digital media. And the geographic focus of her research is primarily on West Papua, which is and this is also was in the article that I will discuss also, a self-identifying term referring to Indonesia's easternmost provinces of Papua and West Papua, where she has conducted fieldwork since 2012. And she's a postdoctoral research fellow at the Edmund A. Walsh School for Foreign Service at Georgetown University, and Veronica holds a PhD in anthropology and film visual studies from Harvard University. And I end with that because that is my bridge, because So you hold, Veronica, a PhD from Harvard, but that is also a place of particular importance, obviously, for your work, expedition content, which you made together with Ernst Karel. And just like with Rizky, I want to ask you maybe to explain first a little bit about the origins of expedition content, and why you visited these particular archives to create your film, if you want to call it a film, actually, your work, maybe.
Thank you so much, Arno, and thank you so much for the organizer of this event. I'm really grateful to be part of this conversation. Expedition content is augmented sound work composed from the archive of Harvard Peabody expedition to Netherlands, New Guinea, or West Papua. The expedition itself took place in 1961, so just a year before West Papua was transferred from the Netherlands to Indonesia. So it was a very important historical moment for many Papuan, but also for the Dutch. So the expedition produced one of the most important ethnographic film in, at least in American anthropology, this Dead Bird. But after Dead Bird, a lot of material that are associated with the expedition have been transferred into different form of rendition. For instance, Michael Rockefeller also took a lot of photographs during the expedition. So 2 books at least were produced to represent this archive. So the expedition itself took the form from the archive that have been left out mostly by institution, but also by the anthropologists themselves. So we work from the audio archive of the expedition. So the audio archive of the expedition was a result of Michael Rockefeller work there, and Michael Rockefeller, as many of you have known, he's the 4th generation member of Rockefeller family, one of the richest person in the world, richest family in the world. He went to West Papua to collect artifacts for his family museum at the time, the Museum of Primitive Art, which was now part of the Metropolitan Museum in New York. He was tasked to make photographs for the expedition, but also to record sound for the expedition. So he had actually to record like the events and rituals and behind the scene for the film Dead Bird. But because of Dead Bird itself didn't incorporate a lot of the sound in the sound like original sound or field recording in the film, so a lot of material were actually just were just reintroduced through the expedition content. So the significance of the expedition and the recordist Michael Rockefeller didn't go actually. Yeah. So the significance of this recording didn't attract much attention until later. So, and I think this is also because of the materiality of the archive itself. So the archive or the audio recording were made using Nagra, and it just digitalized in 2005 when Michael Rockefeller family donated the archive to the Harvard Peabody Museum. So they sent the archive to Indiana Archive of Traditional Music, and then they returned it to Harvard. And at the time, my collaborator Ernst Karel worked on the kind of like the documentation for Dead Bird, and then the museum staff actually let him know that there is this set of like audio archive that he could use. But upon listening the digital archive, he realized that there is so much potential in this archive. So I've been working with Ernst at the time in the sensory ethnography lab, and we have this class called sonic ethnography, where we explore the medium of sound to represent anthropological knowledge. So I think for me, I think the archive is important and fascinating because of my work in West Papua. So we embark on a project to first listen to the archive, but also to translate the archive into material that we can understand from Indonesian and English perspective, English meaning the language. So the archive itself comprises of like recording of different type of sound, and Michael Rockefeller actually like wrote a journal that explained like his categorization. So he for instance created a category called occupational sound, or the sound of nature. And I think the most interesting thing about the sound archive is that it's so different from the visual archive.
Can you explain that?
So we have maybe some of you who have seen the film Dead Bird. We were kind of impressed by this like range of like cinematographic like rendering, especially the rendering of the Hubula warfare, or the Hubula used to be called the Dani warfare. But I think the sound that Michael Rockefeller recorded is so different because he didn't focus only on the war.
Yeah.
Because of his age, he's relatively young. He was considered kind of a child, or maybe more like youth. So he could have access to spaces where Robert Gardner, the filmmaker of Dead Bird, didn't have access to. So for instance, he could go with women to record their activities in the garden, or in the salt well. So I think that point to the nature of anthropological expedition and visual anthropology in particular, as not only as a colonial or imperial project, but also a project that is so much embedded in the context, embedded in the especially like white American attitude toward black people, or racism and sexism. So I think that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
So that I think point also to the nature of the archive as an imperial archive. So we consciously, I think, treat this archive not as a colonial, because the U.S. actually didn't directly rule West Papua, but because of his power after World War II, the U.S. has played as a strong role, including in the political transfer of West Papua from Netherlands to Indonesia through the New York Agreement, which took place in 1962.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting about the Harvard Peabody expedition and the archive that it's produced is that it represents certain kind of power that that manifests itself in the expedition itself, in the anthropological endeavor, but also in the way that they interact with the Papuan. So I think the archive, if you listen to expedition content, a lot of it are really about Michael encounter with the Hupula, and I think that's what our intention was at the beginning, that we wanted to make a sound project that is about Michael, but also about the Hupula.
About that encounter also.
Yeah. So it's both ways. And secondly, because it's a sound archive, we want it to be a sound work. We didn't want it to be a visual work, and we didn't want to incorporate our own voice in a sense that, like that bird that we narrate the archive. So I think the decision to make expedition content as a sound, almost sound only film, because we work with the audio archive and we want to maintain like the materiality of the sound itself as medium. Secondly, we wanted to be screened in a cinema theater in like 5.1 like sound setting, because we wanted to benefit from that setting, like that, using like 5 speakers in the cinema. So I think that those two decisions were quite clear from the early on. The later decision, for instance, about to put like footage or to put like subtitle, like came later. And I'll be happy to talk about that.
This was you actually answered many of the questions that I had also. I'll return, as with Rizky, I will return at the Q&A. But you mentioned also these ideas of materiality, but also the very location of, let's say, the screening location. So for Rizky, I didn't go into that much, but for example, we just discussed it earlier, but also I think the Jakarta Biennale, where it was actually screened, and this was also something with you, Veronica, that I wanted to ask, but you answered it already. So why actually you wanted it to be screened in the cinema? But you already answered that. But I will come back to that later, because you have written with Ernst Karel also a journal article in the Journal of Media, Art Study and Theory, and I think this was also circulated with the people who are attending today, so I can refer to that. But I will do that in the Q&A. First, I actually want to thank you very much for this introduction, and then continue to Ria Rizaldi, who I want to welcome here, who works also as an artist and filmmaker, and worked on his, I don't know, where is Ria? He's still small up there. He worked on his PhD at the School of Creative Media at the City University of Hong Kong, and his artistic practice focuses mostly on the relationship between capital and technology, worldview, and the possibility of theoretical fiction. And his works have been shown at various international film festivals, including Locarno, EFFR, Biennale, BFI London, the NTT Intercommunication Center Tokyo, Biennale Jogja, and many, many more across the globe. And as with everybody else, Ria, I want to invite you to introduce the film a little bit to us, and maybe specifically, I was thinking about how Tellurian drama engages with many discourses actually in the film. So it engages with history, politics, technology, ecology, mythology. Why did you decide that the colonial archive that you used was the proper source material to engage with these kinds of discourses in your film? That may be a point of departure.
Thanks Arnold, and thanks everyone. I hope all of you at least see the films already. So because the films it's kind of hard to explain, but my intention first is that I'm kind of obsessed with the history of technology, and especially history of technology in Indonesia. And then one at the time, I realized that my mother's house actually located quite close with this supposedly the early or the first radio station in Java and probably also in Asia, which is the Radio Malabar, was built by the Dutch colonial government. And then I started to look to that to the ruins, to the building, to the landscape, and this Radio Malabar is located in the Gunung Puntang. It's like there's like a mountainous area where there's like a 3 mountains around that area, and basically now it functions as kind of like a camping ground for people who wants to camp and then doing all of this so-called natural and activities, outdoor activities. So when I was there, and then I started to dig about the history of this radio station and why this radio station was built there and developed there. This is also the reason why in the end I used the colonial archive in the films, because I really want to know the reason why this radio station was built there, specifically there. And then it was really interesting because the colonial government back at the time thought that the mountain Gunung Puntang as some sort of kind of like an extension for their antenna. So antenna to connect their radio station, the Radio Malabar radio station, to the radio station in Den Haag, Radio Kuntwijk. So they're using the mountain as a tools, as an apparatus to extend their technology. So this is something that I learned from from looking through the archive materials. And this archive material is also really interesting. I mean, the way that the process I gather this archive is kind of fascinating, because I don't get it from institution. Usually when you want to find an archive and you get it from any kind of institutions, but Radio Malabar is kind of special because most of the archive was took, or the photograph or the films was took by the engineer himself, and his name was Klaas Dijkstra, and he was the one who actually collect all of the material, and he never donate or give that material to any kind of museum. There's there's a little bit of the archive from Tropen, but most of the film archive was inherited to his family, and then one of his family sold the archive to hobbyists in the Netherlands. So I get it from one of the hobbyists, and his name is Bob Grevenstuk. He's like collectors of anything related to radio station in the world, the history of radio station in the world. So it's kind of an interesting journey to just get the archive, even though now it's like most of the archive are publicly available on YouTube, but it was really interesting to just get the materials. And for me, it's really what is also makes the archive special is that the reason the engineer Klaas Dijkstra, he really wants to document everything, the process of making the radio station, to kind of like showing the world that this is at the time the Dutch have this kind of like advancement in terms of technology, because this is the earliest time when they have some mega structures of radio stations. And another theory that I find it also really interesting, that the idea of them making a radio station is to avoid the surveillance from the British colonial government, because the British colonial government basically monopolized all the telegraph, underwater telegraph cable, which now we use it as an internet cable in the world. So it was owned by the British company, and then the Dutch wants to kind of like connect with the Europe motherland without the cable. So they want to go like a cableless. So that's why they document all of the process of making this radio station, to kind of like as an archive for a future knowledge if they want to develop another radio stations. On the other side, it's also really interesting because in the archive we see a lot of indigenous people, basically people who live in around the Gunung Puntang. they are the one who work as a manual labor, as the one who does a lot of the building and then assembling the antenna, bringing all of the steel, whatever, up in the mountain. So there's this kind of like relation between the intellectual labor that are practiced by the Dutch and the so-called the manual labor that are basically people who are in that area. And then because of that research of the archive, then I started to think theoretically what will happen if at some point there's this connection between the radio station back at the time and nowadays, the idea of thinking a lot about the ecology and the advancement of technology, especially in Tellurian drama. It was really inspired by the writing of Indonesian environmental movement in the 70s, where mostly they write a lot about the idea of kind of like infusing mythical and somehow in the Western perspective, it's a new agey idea of ecology. But for them, especially, it's the way that they actually to avoid the regime, the Suharto regime back at the time, to speak about the condition, the ecological condition in Indonesia, which is also really interesting at the same time because the only social movement that are allowed in Indonesia under the Suharto regime was the environmental movement, but without any political will. So there's this dynamic that I try to explore in this films. Yeah, it's only like 26 minutes, but I try my best to kind of like thinking theoretically the connection between the colonial archive, the radio stations, and then the idea of alternative thinking in terms of like observing or like thinking about ecology, especially the idea of a technology and ecology.
Yeah. I think actually all of your artworks, because we will get into like more of a discussion in a second, but it relates very much also to the past and the present, also how it is sort of a continuation in many ways, but also knowledge production. Right, so in the way of what kind of knowledge. So, for example, Veronica also mentioned how the audio that Veronica used offers sort of a different perspective on the people in relation to, or in comparison to, for example, other anthropological works that did not have the same access. So here again, to return to distance and access, etc. This is something that returns throughout your works. But what I wanted to ask also maybe Ria, and this is maybe something also that I'll ask Veronica and Rizky later, but is this idea of, so Ria, you said that the archive that you use was more or less, let's say, a non-institutional to a certain extent, and then from someone who is maybe like a hobby, what's the word in English? Someone who creates archives. But then I would want to ask you maybe if you consider your own work also an archive for future knowledge, because it also contains many photographs and images, etc., from the past, and then you obviously made a new artwork from that. But could you, or to what extent could you maybe consider it also an archive for future knowledge?
Yeah, but maybe I don't think that the archive that I use is not institutional in a way, because it's still like it was recorded by this guy, which is like a Dutch engineer, and then he's pretty much got the fund from the Dutch colonial government, and I think he's just too greedy, and then that's why he wants to keep the archive for his own knowledge. But he's still like, it's still operating as an institutional archive, of course. And also the way that he talks about the technology, it's pretty much like Western centric rationality kind of thing. But yeah, to answer your questions, maybe, yeah, I mean, I don't know, my practice could be an archive for the future, as long as there is this kind of like way to storage it. I'm not sure if it's, if it's disappeared, then it's just disappeared. But for me, it's like in terms of knowledge production that I try to maybe intervene in the idea of, so you have one archive and then I try to intervene with my own kind of like way of thinking about that archive, and then try to emulate a new perspective to somehow generating a knowledge, and it's probably not a new knowledge, but generating a kind of a knowledge that I'm thinking. So perhaps in a way that could be also seen as an archive for the futures, as long as there is a storage for this work.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I'm actually quite convinced that all of you shine new perspective, obviously, on the colonial past and the post-colonial present. So I would say yes, very much you do this kind of knowledge production. I would like to ask Veronica and Rizky, or you can do that, but maybe the people, the technical people, to sort of show us all four in the screen. Then I want to go to Q&A. I don't see a question in the chat right now, so I will open up first with a question. And just want to say that if you have a question, please do ask it in the chat. But I tried to sort of mirror all of your works together and looked at sort of the things that you have in common. And what your work really reminded me of is sort of this movement also in contemporary Palestinian artists. Gil Hochberg is writing about this, who also reimagine the archive. And what they do is they don't really, these artists, they do not approach the archive through the desire to sort of unearth hidden knowledge. So it's not so much about a repository of historical knowledge, but to talk about how the archive can sort of also, Hochberg writes, to sever the identification of the archive with the past. So how archives can be used to break with history, to show, for example, other histories, or shine in different light on these kinds of histories. And for me, at least, there are two things important in which you all three do that. One is the particular use, or not the use of, sound, so the particular role of sound. And the second actually is imagination. And I actually want to start maybe first with the first, sound, and then we'll see if there are any questions in the chat by then. But in all three artworks, the role of sound is particularly relevant, right? So I would say similarly to how forgetting is intrinsically linked to remembering, here silence is intrinsically linked to sound. So in that sense, what you hear and what you do not hear is, for me at least, the most striking in all of your works. And maybe I want to also start maybe in the same order with Rizky, and then Veronica and then Riar. Can you maybe reflect a bit on the use of sound, or rather the use of silence, the use of music, for example, the use of voiceovers, soundscapes, so environmental sound? How did you or did you not use it, and why? Maybe Rizky first, who, at least in the version that I heard, I think you do not use any sound, if I'm correct, right? Yeah. So why? Or maybe unmute yourself if you're able to.
Well, I don't use sound. I mean, like, I try to be faithful to the material I appropriated. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't use sound, and it's still strong with the intertitle, even though the target audience, I doubt, with the literacy rate at that time. What I want to obtain with this is the same experience when they watch the original archive. I mean, like, when I put the synthetic fragment, the synthetic image derived from the journal. I mean, like, it's not a speculative history, because the history itself, the narrative fragment about the burning, the village itself exists actually. So it's not speculative, but the sound itself didn't exist in the first place. So I don't know. Your question might be a bit irrelevant, but I want to emphasize on to have an imagination. Of course, I mean, like like I said, the burning exists, but the visual, the visualization of the burning didn't exist. I tried to. What if the burning was part of the film? What if you experienced that as the part of the visual report made by Willie Mullins for the colonial administrative government. So that's what I want to achieve actually. So not with sound. So I don't know how to.
No, I think this is a great answer actually, because you also it relates to ideas of authenticity in terms of the recreation of a let's say a colonial reel or film about these kinds of topics, and there you have, so what you really did for me is this idea of a reenactment, right? Sort of reenact.
Yes.
Like what was there. Sorry.
So like what if Willie Mullen really put everything in the film?
Indeed. So, but it is a reenactment, but then also your edition actually really changes that idea, indeed, go into a what if, and that indeed relates to well, let's say an addition and then a different kind of meaning and imagination very much. But I'll come back to that if we have time in a second. But thank you very much for this answer. Veronica, could you maybe explain? Obviously, sound is important, but also maybe how it relates to the visual. You did that a bit already, and then maybe the subtitles that there are, etc.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think for the archive, we kind of use the approach of many anthropologists of sound on one hand, and second as a historian. I think for as a historian, we didn't want to add other material that are not related to the archive in the first place. So we really, I think, want to present the archive not as is, but not by like highly modifying it. So we didn't do any manipulation or like sound, like excessive like sound editing in the process. Secondly, I think the reliance on the sound is also important because of the material itself. But I think because we are also interested in the archive as a process, that's not only oriented toward the past, but also the future in a sense that what we can do with this, right? What we can do with this archive. And I think a lot of archives that we encounter are associated with institutions like universities or museums. And I think we, in our case, is that we are very lucky to work with the institution, but the institution itself is part of the ethnographic subject of our project. So we treat the archive, the sound archive, also as an object of ethnographic inquiry, in which we approach the archive and the act of listening as an ethnographic endeavor, in a sense that we treat sound as many, like, I think anthropologists like Stefan Feld think as acoustemology, that like the way of knowing through sound and in sound. So, and I think this sounds very serious, but the purpose of that is actually like also to challenge the visual reliance of visual anthropology and anthropological knowledge or Western knowledge itself, right? That, that the Papuan, especially the Hubula, have been represented in such a way that their bodies, their skin color, their hair texture are so important as an indicator of like the relation of power of the objectification. So I think in anthropology we have this term called colonial gaze, and I think the first session of this event has talked about that. But I think the question for us is like, how if we turn away from the gaze in the first place, just leave it there and like use the sound, and what kind of knowledge or what kind of affect that can come out from sound, from like knowing something through the sound. instead of through visual.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main question that we are grappling with in
Yeah.
our project.
Thanks for this. Thank you both, actually. I think this is indeed really showcasing also how archival knowledge, so knowledge that is in the archive, how it actually is subverted to an extent. So, for example, by focusing on sound in comparison to, for example, visual anthropology, but also, as Ria said, what if it was included? And then, as Rizky said, sorry, Ria, I actually want to ask you the same question about sound. And in your film, there are both visuals and sound, but obviously what is there also are soundscapes, so environmental sounds, but also voiceovers and music, actually. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about the significance of that in your film also?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, this is a film about radio stations, so I try to also like try to explore it through the medium of sounds and a different kind of medium, a different variation of medium of sounds, but also try to see that the physical materiality of sounds, which is the signals and vibrations, also somehow resonate with the idea of how the people around that area, around Gunung Puntang, understand signals. In contradict to the Dutch colonial who understand signals. So that's kind of like something that I'm trying to do, is to see the possibility of signals, the idea of signals in that signals and vibration in that area. So, for example, I have a musical performance in the end of the films, is to actually understand the way that locals communicate with the mountains through this performances that are basically based on the vibrations of the sitar, of the instrument, which is also generate the sound and then musical compositions whatsoever. But for the Dutch, in the first part of the video, it was sound and signal was basically used as a form of only a communication between human and human, to kind of like broadcasting a news or an issues from whatever happened in the Dutch East Indies to the Europe motherland. Because again, to go back to the archival process that I found, one of the reason why also the Dutch were building the cableless radio station is because of the Krakatoa earthquake. It was basically the whole natural catastrophe was also the determination for them to have a direct news from the Dutch East Indies to the Dutch motherland. So that's why it's the way that they use sound as some sort of a communication tools between human and human, whether the local so-called indigenous people around that area was more than just like human and human, but it's also human and the mountains, etc., etc. So that's one part why I have performances in the films. But also the other idea is the voiceover was also inspired by the idea of obviously radio stations. The way that you communicate in the radio station is that you narrate some sort of kind of like stories instead of just an image. So you have some narrator explain or maybe describing some kind of story. So that's really inspired by the idea. And also the use of environmental sound or like a landscape or a field recording was to think about the archive that are not the tangible archive. So basically the archive of the landscape itself, the evolution of the landscape that it was used by the Dutch back at the time as a place where basically so-called like an industrial and technological advancement was located, and now it was just like abandoned, and it's basically the nature takes over, and then the sound is definitely different. So I'm trying to see, or I'm trying to record like what's happened specifically in that time with the recording tools to just like archiving the sound at the time when I did the filming. So basically also creating a new archive to understand the landscape now, because in the future it could be turn out to be a different kind of places, because now after I finished the shoot, the Dutch government basically wants to make it as a museums in collaboration with the local West Java local government. So it will be a different kind of like, you know, experience, a sound experience as well later. So maybe it also resonate what with the idea of like, you know, archiving sound.
Yeah. So you actually have to make a sequel. After it might have changed.
Every year, and I have to record that every year to see
the
the landscape.
Unfortunately, it's almost time. Actually, I see, but I think there are no questions in the chat, and don't think I have time to really posit them through you. So I will just say a few things which I still wanted to say or ask, actually, which I was unable to do. I think also in what I also had with all of your films actually was the feeling of a tension. So, for example, in Veronica's piece, this tension that you never really knew what was coming because the screen was in like entirely black mostly, although there were these markers when something was said, but still there was this tension. And then also for Ria, obviously, also there was Starboard was as an exciting, like found footage kind of idea, also with the sound, and then with Risky it was the same. Also, as you said, with these animations, which were also very, which are questions also whether you had included them or Willy Mullens had included them. So I watched it back to back also to see that. But what I wanted to ask actually, and will not have time, but I will probably contact you later on because I still want to talk about your works. Is this idea of the imagination and how that also is very relevant in your work in terms of, for example, in Tellurian drama, the history of technology, what it did, what it can do, maybe in relation to the earth and ecology. Then in expedition content, also very much that if you are, especially if you are in the cinema, and you listen to it, that you also, as a person, as an audience, you imagine the visual connected to it. It's sort of automatic, for me at least. So what do we hear and what do we see then in our minds? And then for Not a Light Touch, you very much also, Risky, imagines or recreated something that was not specifically visually, at least, in the archive. So these were just points of discussion that we actually need to skip before I give the mic back to Theo. Yeah, so just to sum up, maybe also this all very much resonated with the first forum, which I really liked, and what you all did in your works and in your presentations. Thank you for those actually, for your explanations. And you really laid bare how the past and present is related in still in different ways and how it continues. So the archive in relation to materiality, the archive as not necessarily only belonging to the past, but also to the present, and also how maybe colonial situations or colonial power structures very much also still continue in the present. And then also the archive in relation to themes that are important for us today in terms of technology, ecology, politics, etc. So this was just a very, very short sum up. And as I said earlier, we couldn't really do justice to your artworks in this short forum, but I'm sure people will enjoy watching the artworks and maybe contacting you also about that. But thank you very much for this. I want to hand the mic back to Theo Bandung, and then he will introduce, I guess, someone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arnold. Wow, what a forum, right? Like, wow, thanks so much. Yes, very resonated with our first forum, actually, yes. And yeah, we already have so much happening actually in the last 2 hours. But this is not the end of today's forum because we still have one more speaker. I hope she can capture the resonance that already happened, and then let's hear what she thinks. And I want to proudly announce Marike Bloembergen as my As this forum first day's closing remarks speakers, Marieke Bloembergen is a senior researcher at KITLV and professor in heritage and postcolonial studies in Indonesian history at Leiden University. Her research interests concerns the political dynamics of cultural knowledge production in colonial and post-colonial Indonesia, as understood in their local, inter-Asian, and global dimension in relation to material culture, heritage practices, religion, and violence. She has also published on policing and modernity, surveillance, and perceptions of insecurity in colonial Indonesia. Her most recent monograph, co-authored with Martijn Eickhoff, is The Politics of Heritage in Indonesia, a Cultural History, published by Cambridge University Press in 2020. And currently, she is working on a book manuscript entitled Indonesia and the Politics of Greater India, a Moral Geography, 1880s to 1990s. So, Marieke Bloembergen, to you.
Thank you, Theo. Thank you, everybody, for an extremely rich symposium on, I think, how to engage and construct narratives and images about the past. This is indeed quite a challenge, but let me start with where we began, where this all began, the creation of Atelier KITLV, which we emphatically set up to have the different disciplines and even different practices engage with each other and listen to each other on the ways we produce knowledge. And today, this is obviously an engagement between the humanities and the social sciences and the arts world, painting and movie making. So I have been listening. I had very little time to engage with it in advance. So my impressions are really mostly based on what I heard today. But I did see some of the footages. And so what I will do, I have some general questions regarding the way we deal with knowledge and the repositories of knowledge, archives, but also sites of heritage. I will make do some general reflections comparing. And then all along there will be some particular reflections and questions. And I don't know how long I will talk. So Theo, please interrupt me. And it may also be too short, and then there may be time for a discussion, because I suddenly thought that might even be more interesting than me saying what I think of all of this. So first of all, I think that the key question, or the hamvraag as we call it in Dutch, that we are all struggling with is how to go beyond, to overcome the dominant structures or dominant narratives of history and the rules of colonial archives. Some of you have addressed these also as colonial archives, colonial structures. Some of you have rightly also reflected on the power structures under subsequent regimes that play a role in the way history is being made and constructed. So this is clearly something that has been preoccupying me throughout my work, and over the years I realized that kind of research should also be accompanied by the following questions that have been addressed also, for example, by Veronica. But when we think of a colonial archive, what is it actually that we're thinking of? And what is colonial about it? And this should be accompanied by the other question, if we think we can overcome these colonial structures by trying to hear local voices, local perspectives, which I very much liked in some of the movies. We should actually also ask the question: what is local about that, and how do we get access there, and what kind of structures of power are playing a role therein as well? And when we try to portray local, do we not run the risk to mystify them, or to make a new binary oppositions between rational Western technologies versus believers, irrational believers? And then the third question is, what is our own role in all of this? How are the ways that we are formed, the disciplines we are formed by, and the fact that we like to be an artist, a scholar, or an activist, or like to combine this? How does that influence the way we look at these questions? So the extremely nice and interesting thing I found of this seminar, and really looking at how everybody is trying to engage with the past and make something out of it and make something new out of it, is this reflective side. You can see it. For me, it is. So I'm an historian. I'm not an art historian. So for me, I don't see it at first sight when I look at a painting. But I have to watch longer and see what I can find back and what the artist has done with it. But I was extremely struck and inspired by the first session where hearing the artists talk about their work and watching longer also to the work myself, that you see these different layers, the reflections of the different perspectives that are available, the different sources artists seek to be inspired. And I saw there also that the way artists work, and certainly historians work, in a way there is it is less different than I thought it would be, to a certain extent. So artists and at least cultural historians and social scientists with a cultural approach, we are very much dependent also of our imagination, how to restructure narrative and decisions about the perspectives we follow. We are also in need of sources that inspire us, or that we need to get access to the past. It seems obvious to think that artists have more freedom. As a scholar, I really have to be very severe in the way I document and refer. In a painting, you don't have to refer to all your sources or how you get this. But the interesting thing is that's, for example, I liked very much the way Ria also reflected on how archives are produced, and how you can get access to different archives, how landscapes can also be an archive. And these are actually also ways and new approaches to thinking about archives, thinking about heritage, that scholars also that want to go beyond the colonial also like to experiment with. And then there is, of course, a difference in the way we can represent our thoughts on history and how it works. And yeah, that made me jealous. Actually, I envy the way in artworks and movies you can do more to trigger the imagination, to also lead the audience to other perspectives, even though an archival source like the archives of the Malabar radio station would tell the story from the perspective of modern science and colonial ethical development practices. So in short, I think so in all artworks and in all movies, documentaries, artworks, indeed, I think it's good to keep it open, what it actually is. You see this effort, and which is really one way to get it out of the colonial narrative, is to explicitly reflect on not on the past, but on how history works and how we produce stories about the past. Because if we do that, we can focus on the power relations that play a role in that, and show the different perspectives on history. Then some general reflections on the art session. I'm not sure yet what I can say more about it, but I was intrigued by the fact that they all seem to be some sort of, I would call it disappearance art. So an artwork reflecting on the destruction of roots. What is it? The deforestation, and that in the end would disappear itself. But I was actually wondering what is the aim of having that artwork disappearing in itself. And then the artworks on Bandung and pollution, and also the destruction of nature. The Theo's work on the pictures, and the disappearing of images through floods, while that doesn't really destroy memory. So yeah, I like that disappearance art and the construction of and the reconstruction of history. And then on the movies, what did I write down? Sorry. Yeah, there was actually still with the art. My question to Zico would be that his hope that he would find the past in the future, and that you would know history in the future, whether that is really what you want, because obviously you're also interested in showing how narratives are being made from certain sides. Oh yes, that is what I wanted to say. What I also saw that what revealed itself throughout the sessions and the works, how, and I'm going to promote the book on the politics of heritage, but how a side-centered approach, how useful that can be, both in the scholarly effort to tell histories from various perspectives, but also apparently in the work of art, because all of you started from particular sites or particular objects in the archives, like a sound archive or a photograph, or or the Malabar radio station. And you all show that if you start from there and you try to go further back in the past and all the way to the present, you see how continuously the history and the meanings of these sites are being made and remade, and not only by a colonial and a post-colonial state, but also by family histories, relations people have with the lands, and how that's, when you integrate that into the artwork, how it shows the complexities and the richness of the past, and how wonderful it is to see how artists engage with that effort. So, kijk hoor. Yeah, all in all, what I think I very much appreciated is that throughout, you see in all of these works, in all of the authors of the works, how they continuously have a questioning attitude to how history is being made and what role power plays therein, which kind of the different kind of structures you see, and it's I think it's very good that that problem is not being solved, the answer is not being given, and that may be also the way to get out, that we have to address and reflect on these problems, and well, what Truya was called how history works, not the past, but the way narratives on the past are being constructed and who is in and who is out. But that is what might be a way of, I'm not sure if I would call it decolonizing history, but getting beyond, and also reflects on the difficulties of post-colonial histories, not only in the West, but also in Indonesia, which some of you also have explicitly done. So that said, I think that getting back to that third question I had, our own role in this, is that it would be good to always also show awareness in how we ourselves also make choices and decide to follow certain perspectives or value certain perspectives more than others, and that we are always also marginalizing. Yeah. That's it, I think.
Check.
No.
Okay, we're on. That's it. Okay, that's yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think if I'm going to go into detail, then I'm not sure. I will be rambling all the time, and it will be a little bit chaotic. I have more questions, but
yes. Okay. Thank you, Marika. I think this is more like a questions, right? A series of questions, like, and yeah. I think we still have 10, 15 minutes, right? So, should we answer them? Yeah, if you want to answer, Zico, from you or from Andit, and or yeah, maybe a response, not answers, and yeah.
Yeah, maybe you asked me before about why the painting had to be erased like that. It's for me and for my wife, like it tends like us as Indonesia mostly history is something is really, it's it's as a political use by the government mostly. Also, mostly during the Soeharto era, it's really almost unknown which is the real, which is not fake history, something like that, storytelling. That's why the painting like this is tend to like, it becomes like how Indonesia is easily to forget their own history, and then they mostly also like, I think they also forgive, yeah. Just, okay, let's just do next, yeah. What's next? Let's go. And then also also I had a discussion with my wife before, like why I have to destroy this complicated painting, because she was working really hard for 5 days, really 5, and yeah, but it's really tense painting. And then she asked me like, yeah, but can you imagine like a rainforest? How delicate is a rainforest? How it's built like thousands of years, but easily destroyed only really quick to grow palm oil plantation, something like that. That's why the painting is gonna be erased. That's the reason.
Okay.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you also like, is this what I want about finding the history in the future? Of course, it's just like, it's very delicate. Of course, like it's not as, if we can choose to be to understand it from the past, like we already have it, like just without asking. That is the ideal. But that's why this has become like, I hope I can find the history in the future, because that is almost like what we already have. That's the condition. That is like, I think that's the privilege that we don't have. Like the museum culture, exhibition culture, it's just happening just really recently. And even like we already had the, I think like we adopt a lot of modernity, we adopt about a lot of things, but not everything is translation like you see in the dictionary, like, oh, what is this? And this is apple, and this is apple. No, it could be like, it's also like with the context. We have a lot of context that I think that's I think like the modernity is you could even like talking about that, it's the ideology that we have, it's not only one like liberal or become like socialist, something like that. We choose very complicated Pancasila, and I think that's create how we are not in a position of the privilege that hopefully like the history is already there in our back room that we can easily access. It's not like that, I think. So that's why I think like I think the privilege is not only about because you get the knowledge because you have the scholar, but yeah.
But what's if I'm well, what struck me is that your artworks you show how one and the same site, Kebun Raya, is related to pre-colonial beliefs and also practices of legitimation of power. And so there's so much going on. So it actually shows that the past is not something out there, but it is something that it has been reconstructed and retold in the past as well. And that's what we always will be doing. So the idea of getting there seems, from the way you engage with history, seems an unattainable thing. It's more we can perhaps get more insight in how these histories have been produced in the past and in the present. So that's why I was a bit struck.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, what are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So continuing from your last remarks, yeah, Zico, yeah. So I think these kinds of statements and frame of thinking, it's I don't know, is it already out there or is it still in this small circle of scholars and artists and?
No, I think actually like.
I'm talking about the more collective dimension of.
Yeah, I mean, you mean like about to understand the history and everything. Like, it's not only about circle of artists. Even like talking to, even like, I mean like, sometimes I think you nongkrong. What is like you hang out with your friends, with your high school friends. Like, we always like when we talking about the past, it's just like. Just the easy way to answer it is like, I think we have to, all the data is in Leiden. Like, something, it's just like.
Easy answers.
Easy answers, like.
Given answers.
Yeah, given answer, like.
Given condition.
Yeah, it's like, I think like it's like universal key, you know, like.
To every question.
Almost like if you don't understand what's happening and you, maybe they have the data in Leiden. Sadia, maybe.
Can I also add something?
Yeah.
Like if we think also about the past of something that is of the past or something that we can only see in something like tangible in a way, like in images or the landscape or whatnot, I think we should also remember that the past is also in our bodies. Like all of the rituals that you are all familiar with and are still sort of like part and parcel of all of the works that you're doing that's also past, but that's past that lives in the body. So there's also this embodied histories, memories that we not necessarily immediately think of, but they're actually here as well. And still, I feel also very influential in the way. At least, I'm most familiar with Zico's practice, but it's part of how Zico makes artwork. So in a way, the past is also still really very much of the present.
Yeah, but I want to take it back to our first, let's say, when I opened this forum, right? The question of even the title of this event, the distance, and how I also express it in my work, and how even in your own self, your own family, the distances exist. And even the Bandung and Leiden with the literal distance, with the, that kind of sentence that Zico just mentioned, maybe it will be there in the Leiden, like that kind of, which is, I don't know, even, I'm not sure if that's the truth. If can we find that's actually the question that I will face in like maybe in the coming months when I come to the Netherlands, right? Like, is it there? Is my past, my family's past, our Indonesian past is there, or what is there in the Leiden? Whose past? Like, that kind of. I'm not sure about that kind of question, and which is, I'm looking for the project, of course, right? Yeah.
So maybe can I ask you a follow-up question?
Yes.
But actually, I think this is for both you, and I think also for Marike and Esther, I think, who are within this program affiliated with KITLV. But I think it has to do with a larger kind of like this urge, especially in the Netherlands now, but also in Europe and globally, to decolonize society. There is the Black Lives Matter movement, decolonize the museum movements. So there is a need to decolonize societies in Europe and in America. And one of the ways to do that is indeed, like KITLV is now starting, inviting artists to also help reflect on the collections, the archives that are there. So I'm guessing like it's about an exchange of like experiences, views, perspectives, etc. But then it's kind of like, in a way, sort of like obvious that, you know, if you go to the Netherlands, that you would sort of like bring in a fresh perspective to those archives. But what is kind of like, if I may finish, what are you expecting to sort of like get back from your experience in the Netherlands? Or what does KITV think that they could offer the artists who come to the residence?
Marika?
Now, this is a question to you, so I think you have to answer first.
My expectation,
For I think all of us, and I don't mean, it's also just a question to think about. I don't mean, you know, I don't think there is like an immediate question, but it's, you know, what do people get out of such exchanges?
I have a different question. I can connect to it, so I just first would like to.
Oh, so let me answer that first. Yeah, my expectation. Yeah, even since the first time I draft my proposal, I always have the sentiment the same with Zico and Kay and Anit and everyone that already joined us here. But I think more so with the let's say the progress that happened in February regarding the research that has done with KITV and the UGMs and Mark Rutte said sorry and everything, the small steps that took maybe now it's already 70-ish years. Yeah, I think I'm looking for like even the Prime Minister already said that nothing happens in Indonesia. Yeah. Like, yeah, what, it's not that what could be done in the Netherlands, yeah? Not what could happen in Indonesia. I'm thinking about that, what could be done here. Even though I took many visits to many archives institutes, but if there's nothing happen here, like, why should I took that route? Like everything, like, yeah, maybe there's something should be explored or changed, or even the whole logic that Zico just mentioned. Maybe everything is there. Maybe everything is in here, or maybe everything is not exist anymore. Yeah, maybe everything is just.
Yeah, I mean, like that's just a saying. Like people when they are, yeah, about like everything is in Leiden because they don't know sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that is my kind of expectation.
Yeah, yeah. So if I may take the opportunity to ask some of the very particular questions I had, and one I think I can relate it is to Riar, whose film I really found fascinating, and I'm actually also wondering. Well, I see there is an imaginative layer in it that goes beyond academic scholarly work when you start to reflect on how to use the radio waves for geo development. But I like that very much. But what also intrigued me very much is the role of this scholar you used, this image of the scholar. And I asked Theo, does this Dr. what's his name again?
Dr. Munarwan.
Munarwan really exist? And then Theo said, no, of course not.
Riar, can you respond?
and then I thought, well, maybe there is also some sort of a cliche image about scholars, because I would think that a figure like him, I would find ample examples of that kind of idiosyncratic scholars with a huge imagination or a rather original approach to their field. But yeah.
Yeah, with the risk to unleash the mystery, Riar, would you answer to that or keep it to your imagination kind of answer, Riar?
I mean, yeah, a little bit. It's again, I just like throw up to the imagination of the audience, but I would say that it's also a some kind of like the mix of ideas and writings, especially by kind of like a left field or like a marginalized academics back in the 70s and 80s, especially environmental issues, where it also relates to the idea of that the academics is really suppressed by the power, and then people have to deal a lot with the language they use, as well as the knowledge that they produce. So it's something that I'm really interested. Is the idea of playing with the game of a language and playing with the game of the ideas that are somehow, you know, it's not following the Western so-called like a Western academics way of thinking, but also it's not really following the idea of, let's say, like indigenous way of thinking. So it's like it's really an alternative of looking things. This is something that I'm interested in. But for Dr. Andres Munarwan himself, it's probably a mystery. Probably he just like, maybe Suharto killed him. I don't know.
Is that an answer, Marika?
Yeah, well, so yeah, it is. It is. Thank you. Yeah, no, I think we share an interest in various issues. So I hope to be able to talk to you further at another occasion.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if Veronica. Oh no, but it's time. Huh?
Yeah, I think
we have to close.
Yes, yes.
I heard.
Yeah, but I think for a short, this is I think quite short kind of seminar. I think we have so much happening. So I want to thank you for everyone that joined the first day's forum. Thank you, Sadia. Thank you, Zaldi. Okay, Andit, Ziko. Thank you, Arnold. Thank you, Veronica, Riars, and Rizky. Thank you, Esther, and thank you, Bu Marika Bloombergen. Thank you so much for joining this. Actually, this forum left many questions rather than answers, of course. But yeah, I think that's the whole point of everything that we set up here. It's a questioning gesture, and this is not the end of our series. There will be second day tomorrow at the same time, 10 in the morning in the Netherlands and 3 here in Bandung. So please join us, everyone at the Zoom. Thank you for joining us for the last 2 hours. We will have breakfasting here in Bandung, and so everyone please stay healthy, and tomorrow we will have 2 more sessions that also addressing the idea of archive and the past through there will be music, there will be forums from journalists and writers and artists, and yeah, so many things, different things from the first day. We will see tomorrow. So see you on the same link, and thank you so much for your presence today. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Theo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Makasih. Arigato.
Arigato.